I completely forgot to come up with something to say. I'm Spike.
I'm Kel.
I I'm Amanda, and I'm resurrecting my 2,000-year-old webcomic while we talk.
Welcome to episode 38 of the Iron Circus Geek Show, entitled
Yes, that is what I called it.
That's exactly
Um,
that's exactly what it's called.
Amanda, before the show started, you or Spike and Amanda, before the show started, you were wondering about COVID test stuff
I was not,
before.
but
I was.
Well, Spike was whether or not you need a COVID test to enter Canada at this moment in time. The answer is no, you do not.
Okay,
I've
why
cool.
was
just been
Spike worrying
informed
about that?
because
Because
Spike
for
ain't going to
you,
Canada.
go
Oh,
to
for
TCAF.
you. I care
oh,
about you,
I
Amanda.
I take care of that stuff. I'm good.
I have to make sure is all.
I manage that stuff without
I
you.
I I was wondering because I am going to VanCaf.
Cool, cool, cool. I love
So
VanCap. VanCap is great.
so I was asking friends, do I need to make sure I'm COVID negative before entering Canada? And
You,
they're like,
I
not
think you just
anymore.
I think you
So
just need to bring your Vax card, right?
I don't even know if
nope,
you have
you
to
don't
do
even need
that.
to
Oh,
do that
I
now.
guess
They
they
don't
just
care.
changed that then.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, everyone just assumed that the pandemic is over, even though
Yeah,
it's
let's all
not.
pretend everything is fine. That's basically the
Yeah.
mode of the world now. Let's all pretend everything's fine. Even China gave up, and China was trying to do zero COVID. But yeah, I just wanted to make
Japan
sure you.
give up. I was looking into going to Japan in October, and they're still like,
Ah,
you need a COVID test 2 weeks before entering.
okay.
Uh,
Yeah,
so
but it's just there's
Are
a
they
lot of
still doing the thing where they only do guided tours, or have they
oh,
lifted those restrictions?
no, they just dropped that, which is why I was like, oh, now I can go.
nice.
Ah,
Yeah,
And
I am never a big fan of the guided tour. Follow the person with the flag on a stick, going everyone walk directly with me like ducklings. I've never been a fan of that.
well, Deb Oki recommended a tour group for nerds, which is less of a guided tour and more like a package. So it's like we will give you your hotel, your Ghibli tickets, your whatever, all in one thing.
Hmm.
So they're themed. Like if you care about animation, here's all the shit that animators care about to do that you would need to purchase in advance before going. Um,
Nice. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, so it's less of that. Still counts, would have counted under their like guided tours or whatever. It's
Yeah.
basically you have to be with a travel group.
Right.
But they dropped that, so
Yeah. It's like when I travel, the best way I can describe it is kind of what I consider personally like my trip of a lifetime when I went to London with Matt years and years ago. And I got extremely anal retentive about planning everything ourselves. Matt is a very passive person. He's the kind of guy who's just like, I'm up for it. I'm up for whatever, just whatever you want to do.
mhm.
We've been together for goddamn near 20 years. I know I'm going to want to do it too. So just, decide what you want to do and I'll do it. And I sat down for like weeks beforehand and just looked what was going to be available in London when we were going to be there. And we ended up doing things like going to St. Paul's Cathedral, Postman's Park, but also going to like, there was a really good comic shop in London. I think the pandemic got it though. We ended up going to like
make
London.
it sound like it ate it.
Yeah.
The pandemic ate the gift
Yeah.
shop.
We saw the Golden Hind, which is like a sailing ship. We went past all kinds of cool stuff. We ended up going to the Saatchi Gallery to see a touring exhibition of Tutankhamun's grave goods. And we ate in like a lot of really good restaurants. And I was just so fucking proud of myself. Like on my to-do list was things like have high tea in London. I don't want to be on my deathbed one day and be like, I never had high tea in London. And then you know what? I fucking did it. I went and had high tea in London.
I
And I
didn't.
saw a
And
bunch
then
of
you
shit.
learned that it was overrated.
No, high tea in London is great, actually. Kel, don't universalize your experience. I enjoyed it. But it was all like done under our own steam. And it was really satisfying at the end of the day to be like, yeah, that was exactly the London experience I want. But since it's London, you
uh,
can't fucking do everything in a week, so we have to go back.
did you go to the Globe Theater?
Yeah, we saw the Globe Theater. We don't really have a ton of interest in
Oh,
going to the Globe Theater because we went to the
oh, I saw a Shakespeare thing at the Globe Theater when I was in London.
yeah. But so you, since you were in London, you saw the Tate Modern. That's how we saw
Yeah,
the Globe Theater. We went to the Tate Modern because we wanted to see a bunch of
I've been
art.
twice.
Oh, lovely.
Uh, so, yeah, cause in high school I did this program for smart kids where you took a semester at Oxford for college credit stuff.
Fancy,
So
fancy.
I spent a summer in Oxford. I got to see where they filmed the wizard films that shall not be named. Um, because that's just right
We
there.
should just call them the shitty wizard
And
movies.
Well, that's
yeah, the
hardly.
shitty wizards.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
The
shitty
shitty
wizard.
wizard movies were filmed there. So I got to see um, those. There are cows on the Oxford grounds. You can
Hmm.
pet them. They just
Mhm.
hang out.
Fair enough.
There are uh, so yeah, Oxford is a very it was so I spent a summer there, and they had like a weekend trip to um, London, which is why I have seen a thing at the Globe Theater, because they're like, this is for um, high school kids that are all not from England, so they probably should see some Shakespeare at the Globe Theater.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then I saw not Stonehenge, but a smaller, less famous henge, so you can still touch the rocks.
Oh, nice.
Um, you are not allowed to touch the rocks at Stonehenge because people kept chipping
Doing
stuff
things.
off.
Yeah, people kept doing
Yeah.
things to them. Yeah. Because people are fucking idiots,
So
can't behave themselves.
I saw the Effington horse.
That
Nice.
effing horse.
I might be saying it wrong. It
A
might be
horse that's carved
Uffington.
into chalk. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so that was like the first time I was in England, and then the second time, it was basically at SCAD. I did a semester in France to study French comics, and me and a friend were like, "Wait, England's right there.
Yeah.
A round trip ticket is like $50.
Yeah. Go through the
Let's."
channel or
So we
something.
picked a day when there was a holiday, like a long weekend, and so we went, and I met up with Kate Ashwin, and we did some stuff in London that was more casual.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I have
Well,
spent a cumulative 2 months in England.
yeah, and you said that how'd you feel about it?
It was fine.
Yeah.
The sun got up. The sun rose way too early.
Oh god.
It was
'cause it was
summer.
the summer.
Yeah, the sun was up way too early, and I didn't like that.
Yeah.
But
My
beside
favorite.
beside from that, I didn't really do much there.
Wow. Okay.
I wasn't there for England. I was there for a
There for you.
terrible, terrible boy I was interested in.
Yeah. I think my favorite thing I ended up doing in London, it's very like niche, but I went to Twining's original tea shop. Like if you go to any fucking grocery store, you see tea for sale. You're going to see Twining's tea there. You probably know the logo. But yeah, I went to the original little itsy bitsy teeny weeny fucking established hundreds of years ago Twining's tea shop, which is still operational and very fucking adorable. And I got tea there, and I very much enjoyed it. And to reflect upon the shitty wizard books, I also went to platform 9 3/4 because, and I didn't like plan to go there, but the thing is,
Gross.
our train
Gross.
when
No,
we
no, you
were
don't have to make excuses
no,
for yourself,
part
Spike.
of the reason we were
You're
in
you're
the
gross.
UK,
We got it. You're
let me
gross.
finish, let me talk.
Never.
Part of the reason we were in the UK is we were guests at a really, really good con, which is called Thought Bubble. And it is nowhere near London. It is in the north of England. And it's fucking great. If you're ever invited, anyone listening to this, or if you're ever thinking of going, anyone listening to this, feel free. It's awesome. Highly recommended. And
Yeah,
when
just get
we're
invited.
and we were hey, if I can get this shit done, anyone can. That is
Bullshit.
that is my
No, you're famous.
personal-
Everyone wants to date
Y'all
you.
are so full of shit. Anyway, anyway, when we got off the train, because after we did Thought Bubble, we were like, while we're in the UK, why not just just spend a week in London. We got off at King's Cross Station, and while we were there, we were on our way out to go find our hotel, and we were like, "That's a long line, and it does not appear to be like going anywhere. It's just there." And we looked. It's like, "Oh, it's take a photo at platform 9 3/4." Okay, and I was like, "You know what? Fuck it." And I just went and got in line, and Matt's like, "You don't even care about this shit." I'm like, "No, it's on Atlas Obscura, and I want to tick off the entry."
Um,
Yeah.
See, I had shitty wizard movie paraphernalia forced upon me. They were like, "Oh,
Mhm.
by the way, this building we're giving you a tour of is where they filmed the shitty wizard movies."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Okay."
But my
if I'm
I
but
have
like
always, I have always hated the shitty wizard.
yeah.
That's
I fell
My
out with the shitty wizard in high school.
what? How would you fall out with the shitty wizard? What happened?
I used to like it, and then as it progressed, I stopped liking it because it pissed me off. We've had this
Oh,
conversation before about how the shitty wizard books pissed me off.
okay, okay. Yeah, but my favorite place I went in London is definitely Highgate Cemetery. It was fantastic, and I'm a goth piece of trash. And I just really fucking enjoyed this like old school garden cemetery, and it's just fucking good. It's just fucking really cool. For folks who are not familiar, you probably have seen Karl Marx's headstone. It's very large and hilarious. It's just called Karl Marx's head on top of a stone column, and I love it because it's so fucking bizarre. It's and that is where that is. It's in Highgate Cemetery, and a lot of people of various notability, notoriety are buried in Highgate Cemetery. Probably the guy who wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He's there, for example, and
Congratulations to him.
yeah, and Lushenko. I don't remember his first name, but there was a Russian expat who was poisoned with a radioactive substance or something in his tea.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't think was it radioactive?
It was something bad, but it was in his tea, and he is buried there too. And one of my favorite graves that I saw, there are a couple really there's some fucking absolute
So
classics
I
in
just got it.
Highgate.
So is the qualifier that you already be famous or the qualifier that you be irradiated?
I think you need a little of both, honestly.
Shit.
But so
Because
you
I
know
think
what,
I can pull
Amanda?
off the irradiation.
Yeah, they have a tomb that's like the first. They called him a menagerist back then, but like the first zookeeper in London has a big lion on his tomb,
How irradiated
and
is he? Is he?
I do not believe he is irradiated
Damn it.
whatsoever. And there is also a really notable boxer, like back in the day when boxing was just had no regard for human life, and he went like 40 rounds at times and shit like that. But there's a notable London boxer buried there. But most people talk about it because he's got a really great headstone, where it's his dog lying on his tomb because his dog followed the funeral procession.
Sorry, I just love the idea of like the most notable thing being about you is like your fucking tombstone.
Yeah. And also, I think the guy, what's that guy's name who promoted like the Sex Pistols? McLaren, something McLaren.
I,
He is buried there and has a very bizarre tombstone. And a big part of Highgate was rather built when Victorian London was like absolutely freaking out about ancient Egypt, like they fucking loved ancient Egypt. So there's a lot of Egyptian motifs there, a lot of columns and pyramidal obelisks. That's what I'm looking for. And it's kind of interspersed with this sort of grab for Greco-Roman or Greek stuff because those people like to what's the word? Cremate themselves. But Londoners didn't want to do that back then. So what they did is they buried
Mhm.
themselves and then they put carvings of cremation urns, Greek and Roman cremation urns on top of their gravestones. So that's where that comes from. And Highgate is just really fucking cool. I really like it a lot. It's got a lot of really interesting history. Even if you're not a stupid morbid bitch like me, I definitely recommend giving it a visit. When I went, for example, the East Cemetery you could just go do whatever in, but the West Cemetery needed to be a guided tour, and part of that I think is George Michael had just died, and they didn't want people running into West Highgate and like doing whatever. But I think that the guided tour requirement is over now. and I
Um,
again,
Because he
I
got
think
better.
yeah, he got better. But yeah, if again, go on Atlas Obscura. It's a really good website to find interesting things in towns and look at the entry for Highgate Cemetery and you'll see how beautiful and atmospheric it is. And it was a highlight of my fucking visit. It was
I I really liked the Uffington horse.
good. The chalk horse,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it was very cool because it's so big that like when you're like up on it, like you can walk on it. It is basically like it's so big, and also the fact that it's still there means like even when historical preservation like wasn't a thing,
Hmm.
people were like, no, we're keeping this horse.
Yes. It's a good horse.
Like throughout the years. And I say this as someone who's usually anti-horse.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's just like it's a community effort to keep it there, and it's just really cool. And you can touch it.
Touch
There
the
will
horse.
also be sheep hanging out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's really good. It's a good horse.
It's an excellent horse. I
Um,
have not personally seen this horse, but it is an excellent horse.
I'll
it's
believe it when I
so
see it.
big.
Yeah.
It is so big.
Oh, by the way, I
Like
remembered the name of the place in London. No Brow Comics, but it no longer exists. Sorry, just wanted to get that in.
so yeah, and the henge that was not
I
as
think
famous.
Fantastic Planet is the store where I got my first Club 9 volumes
Oh,
in England.
so the trip to England was worth it. In
I
the
didn't
end.
say it wasn't worth it.
Oh, okay.
I just said I didn't see anything interesting.
Oh.
I
I
wasn't
also
there for sightseeing. I was there to
hang out with a person.
date a human.
Yes. Yeah.
And the mini henge that I saw was nice, but the thing that the professor that was taking us there said was a lot funnier and more memorable than the henge itself.
Yeah.
Because certain classes went on certain little extra trips,
Hmm.
and going to see the henge, it was the creative writing class, the archaeology class, and the history class. And the archaeology teacher is like giving a spiel about like what you're gonna do, why we're going to this henge, why it's important. And then he says, and I don't know why the creative writing kids here. I guess they're gonna hug the rocks and be inspired.
Uh-huh.
It's like it's so dismissive.
Yeah. In also a thing, I got on a train and I went to see. This is another thing I recommend. Again, this is all like shit. That was part of my personally crafted itinerary. I went to the Crystal Palace and I saw the Crystal Palace dinosaurs. And for
Now,
again,
I would
folks who
like to
don't-
see those fucked up dinosaurs.
Yeah, they are so fucked up, Amanda. Basically, during the Great Exhibition, like almost 100 years ago at this point, maybe like 80 years ago at this point, there was this whole like the whole point of the Great Exhibition isn't England great, isn't London great, isn't the British Empire great, rah rah rah. They made this walk-through park that had sculptures of what they genuinely thought.
I'm
certain recently
no,
discovered
actually,
dinosaurs-
no, Spike. Here's the thing about that. Even when those statues went up, they were already outdated, and most scientists and paleontologists did not agree with those representations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were already out of date by the time they went up.
But for folks who want to see what we're talking about, Google Crystal Palace dinosaurs. They're still there. They're still maintained. It's not like they're in a state of decrepitude or anything. People fucking love those hideous things.
Oh yeah, they are hideous. But I only bring that up because
Yeah.
I think it's a misconception. This is what everyone thought dinosaurs looked like at the time. It's like, no, they actually didn't.
Yeah,
They actually had a way better grasp on dinosaurs
Yeah,
than people realize.
It's very bizarre because there's one of an iguanodon, and it just straight up looks like a very large iguana. Like if you've
Yes.
seen an iguana, that's what it looks like. They
My
just made it
favorite thing is
bigger.
that that interpretation is largely based on their teeth.
Yeah.
That's
And then
wild.
there's one that's like, I want to say like a megalosaurus or something. And there's definitely an ichthyosaur because I saw that one, and that one is just like you tried gold star drawn in MS Paint, and they're just fun. They're just fun, and I really love them. And go take yourself a photo with a fucked up dinosaur statue. They're great. And also go to the other thing I would super duper recommend in London is go to the Natural History Museum
I think I
and
did that.
see Mary Anning's plesiosaur. Mary Anning is rad. I love Mary
I
Anning.
remember going to some kind of museum.
Yeah, and
It had like a
go-
glass walkway I refused to walk on.
and I also went because I'm gross. I when I say I'm morbid, I mean it's just who I am.
We
I
know.
went to I went to see the Broad Street cholera pump, which is basically
Oh yeah.
yeah. So there was this guy named John Snow, not that John Snow. This is a different John Snow, and his whole deal is he used math to figure out that there was a water pump in the heart of London that was giving everyone around it fucking cholera. And people
Mhm.
back then weren't completely sold on the germ theory of disease. So a lot of people were attributing it to bad air. They thought miasma was what did this. And he was like, no, seriously, I'm looking at it. I interviewed all these people. I drew a little map and everything. They're getting water. They're all getting water from this pump. Someone's toilet is leaking into this pump. That's the only explanation. And he convinced London to take the handle off the Broad Street pump, and the cholera epidemic went away.
I mean,
And so,
it did
Uh,
not go away, and they act, and he was acting. People still didn't believe him. They just kind of took the handle off to humor him.
well, no, I mean,
um,
No,
they
he was
stopped.
not believed until after he died. Like it took a lot that long. He was correct, and taking the handle off did work, but like it, he was not believed even after that.
yeah.
Well, okay, but I am just
I'm
saying
just
he had
saying
this,
that's just how it
yeah,
went.
yeah, he just had this theory that this is what was going down, and you can
I
see.
believe in the thing that like helped him figure it out was that it wasn't miasma is um rich folks that didn't live near the pump got sick.
Mhm.
Um because their servants were getting water from that pump while like on an errand. Um
But yeah, if
You
you go
can't
to
have cholera.
you if you go to the Broad Street cholera pump, you can see what's basically like a replica of where the pump was, complete with the handle removed, and it's like an important thing in medical history in retrospect. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I went to go see. And there's also a really good restaurant really close to there, and I had delicious food. It was wonderful. And I recently saw a YouTuber who did a food tour of London, and that is what makes my fat ass want to go back so much more because they did a thing where they stood in line at a stall, and it was a long ass line. And basically, what the person running the stall did is they took Yorkshire puddings, which in the UK, a Yorkshire pudding is like a fry bread, and they made the Yorkshire puddings like into burritos. That's the only way to describe it. So they took
Oh,
Yorkshire
so they
puddings
were
and instead of
Yorkshire pudding tubes.
yeah, so they were like they made them into like tortilla, like they made tortilla shaped Yorkshire puddings, so they were wide and circular, and then they just loaded it up with
I
what
mean,
I
burrito shaped. That's not tortilla shaped.
it well they made them into tortilla shapes and then loaded them up with what in the UK they would call a Sunday dinner. So there was like roast beef and peas and mashed potatoes, and then they rolled it up like a burrito, and it looks
Oh,
so
okay, okay, I get
fucking
it now.
good. It looks so fucking good, and
Ugh.
I want to eat it. So I got that is on my next to do list. Next time I
I
hit London, I
maybe
will.
I just got unlucky, but every time we would have like the Sunday dinner, it was just so bad. I hated it.
It was see the
It
thing
was
is,
so greasy. I hated it.
oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I love a good roast meat, especially now that this is so like beside the point. But one of the gifts that I got from my in-laws when I believe I was married is I ended up with a sous vide machine, which is just a little wand, and you stick it into like you fill up a stock pot with water, right? And you stick it in, and you set it to a certain temperature, and it holds that temperature perfectly for hours and hours and hours. That's what it is. And if you sous vide a roast, oh my fucking god, it's so good. It's so
I can guarantee you these were not sous vide.
good. Were they like gray and hard and stringy?
They were just, it was just greasy meat. I don't know what to tell you, Spike. It was just roast.
Mm.
Like, there's just things I don't like. It just,
Hmm.
I don't like I don't like sopping meat.
Mm. I love a tender, slow cooked, like hard. Like you take like a shitty cut of meat, like eye of round. Okay, it's super lean and like pork loin. They're both super lean. They're super easy to fuck up. People like buy them once and then try and like pan fry them. And by the time the middle is done, the outside is like sawdust, and they're like ew, and they never buy them again. But no, just like fucking stick that shit in a sous vide bath for like 6 hours, 10 hours,
I
and
don't
just
got that kind of
hold.
time.
Let it hold at 137, and just oh, it's so good. It's so fucking good. It's so tender. It's so juicy. It's so good.
I believe you.
Science.
I don't believe you. I think that you're full of shit.
But yeah, the deal is if you know, whatever, I don't even know. I think a lot of people like their steaks internally at like 125. That's like a good place to start. If you like it rare or,
Yeah.
125, 130-ish.
I like rare steaks.
So you would set the sous vide thing to like 125, 130-ish, and then you would like throw your steaks in. They could be frozen, like it doesn't matter. You throw them in. And the best part about sous vide is you can't overcook anything because it only ever gets as hot as the temperature you set it as. And so you can just leave it in there after it's done, if you're not ready to deal with it. A lot of people like stick a roast in and let it go overnight and just go to bed. And they wake up, and by the time it's time ready for dinner, I mean, the thing's been ready for hours, but it's not going to overcook. It's just going to sit in there. So, fucking
Okay.
good. Yeah, it's so fucking good. It's so fucking.
I'm not into cooking.
Oh.
Yeah, you're talking to the wrong people.
Yeah, I'm definitely a life is too short for bad food kind of person.
Here's the thing. I'm the opposite. You eat food so quick, and then it turns to poop, and it was like, what was the point?
No.
What was the point?
For me,
I do like foods. I do like
Yeah.
eating. It's just
Yeah.
there's a certain level of time and preparation where it's like, I'm gonna eat this, and then it'll be poop.
I understand that. I get that. I mean, there's a time I was like, about that. But I've had friends who are the type who are, I wish meals just came in pill form like in sci-fi, so I just never had to think about food again.
Yeah,
And that's never
I
been
mean,
me.
you're talking to one of them.
Yeah.
I would love that.
I wouldn't, no.
I still like to I still love to indulge. It's just every meal doesn't need to be an indulgence.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. And
I'm
I would
not
say
saying in
that's
general. I meant to me. Like,
yeah.
if
And I
someone,
would say
I
in
wouldn't
gen-
judge someone who did want every meal to be an indulgence. I'm not saying that as a judgment. It's just as a me thing.
Yeah, and I agree personally. I don't think every meal should be an indulgence. I'm a big believer there should be special food. And I think that's actually a thing that society isn't really down for anymore, like because of the current state of human civilization. And I'm not necessarily, condemning this or saying it's a good thing. Either way, I'm just making a statement of fact. Like air quotes special foods are constantly available now, so I think that makes them less special. In my opinion. I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to have like a special food that you have at a special time.
I'm
If-
the wrong audience for this
Yeah.
conversation.
Like, this is like I believe you. This is valid. I just literally have no input.
I believe that you believe this.
I just have no input on it. It's like,
I
yeah,
know,
that
I
sounds
know. I
great.
just, like food is a hobby of. I just made a big ass thing of Japanese curry, and just it's all partitioned out and in the fridge right now, and it's how I feed my husband. But I like food, and food is also my love language. As fucking dork
Yeah.
ass as that sounds.
No, that's great. I know. Again, I think that's great. Is this my thing? Is this a conversation I can't contribute to? And I'm just
Yeah.
explaining myself. If you're wondering why I'm
You're
like
just talking
nodding.
at us.
Yeah.
No, she's not talking at me. I'm explaining my silence. I don't want to come
Yeah.
off as rude. I just
Yeah, it's fine. You're not rude. It's just I'm just talking.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I mean, I like to cook sometimes too. It's just that's time and money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I made a air fried tofu and I was happy with that.
Was it tasty?
I just said I was happy with it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Just saying.
No, Spike, I love this trash that was horrible and made me want to vomit.
Okay, I'm just saying you could be satisfied with something but not ever want to make it again. Those are two conditions that can exist in the same item.
That's not what was. Wait, what? That wasn't what was asked.
Okay.
I'm confused.
You asked, was it good? Uh,
Yeah.
anyway, comics
Spike,
are
cook
cool.
for me.
Hmm.
Spike, make me a dinner.
You don't like my cooking.
We'll make something I like.
No.
Go out of your way
Y'all
to.
don't get to sit here and talk about how food doesn't matter and then demand I cook for you.
I didn't
Fuck
say
y'all.
food didn't matter. I was.
Yeah, I was the one who said
Don't get
that,
that shit
and I
from
did
your
not
mom.
ask you
I'm
to
not
cook
here
for
for
me.
that.
I
cook for
didn't
someone who
say food
appreciates
didn't
me.
matter. I was explaining my lack of enthusiasm, so I didn't come off as rude. I'm going to flip a table where is one.
Aether Tail said, Spike, did you enjoy your meal? Yes, I did. I had a lovely meal today. Thank you. The Japanese curry over brown rice was very nice. I had a great meal.
But I demand you break your routines and cater to me and my needs immediately. Accommodate me. Yes. I demand it.
Oh, God.
Having said that, I'm still on my salsa hunt, and I know I
Oh,
can make my
right.
own salsa, but
Yeah, I know. I understand that, wanting to just have,
yeah.
something nice from home. I like, as a Marylander, as a person who grew up in Maryland, like, you absolutely don't take you don't appreciate the availability of like fresh cheap seafood from the Chesapeake Bay. You just don't. And now I live in the middle of America, like quite just far from any sea coast, and oh, I miss it now.
I knew I was going to miss Tex-Mex, but
Yeah. Yeah, you get used to certain kinds of cuisines, and then when you move 1,000 million miles away, you're like, fuck. I didn't know this would be an issue.
I did know it would be an issue. I did it in spite of that knowledge.
And how are
I
you finding Chicago? Fucking commie ass Chicago, progressive as fuck Chicago, with our socialist adjacent mayor.
I like it. I voted for him.
Yeah, me too.
I
I'm so fucking happy about that. No offense, but fuck off LA, fuck off New York. Chicago is the most progressive city.
was very surprised that like I'm not used to, because again I'm from horrible little Clute wherever in very South Texas where everything is very far away, and I found out my voting location was a 7-minute walk from my apartment.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was
That's what
like,
happens.
oh,
That's
okay.
what happens when you live in a state that actually wants you to vote.
It's like, oh wow, shit.
Yeah, when you live in a state that makes it easy for you to vote, a state that'll happily mail you your ballot. That's what happens.
Sky Mason, the closest I found to okay Tex-Mex so far is, oh shit, what was it called? Pepe something something. God damn it, I gotta look it up. Give me a second.
But for folks who avoid the news, and quite frankly, I don't fucking blame you. Chicago just elected its most
Pepe's
progressive-
Mexican restaurant. Okay, it's not, here's the thing, it's not great. It's very the kind of Tex-Mex you get when you're drunk and everything's closed. But it's still Tex-Mex, so.
Have you been to Pilsen? They don't have Tex-Mex, I don't think. They have a lot of Mexican though.
Is that a place?
Pilsen is a neighborhood.
A neighborhood. I don't know the neighborhoods yet, so I have no idea
Ah.
if I've been there yet.
Yeah, Pilsen, it's getting kind of like hardcore gentrified right now. So maybe not in a few years, but right now it has some really nice kind of mom and dad Mexican restaurants. So cries in Floridian, must be nice to have decent voting option. If fucking Jay Brooks, it's fucking rad. Like everyone in Chicago is so fucking happy right now. And keep in mind, okay, so for folks who didn't follow the news, and again, don't blame you, we had a fake ass bullshit cop boot licking mayor named Lori Lightfoot that when she came into office, everyone thought she was going to be cool because she's a black lesbian. But no, she just like couldn't get enough boot leather. She like couldn't get enough boot leather. She loved it every second of every day.
She wanted that boot to step on her.
Exactly, and not in like a fun way.
She
And
took
not in a good way.
Puis Steppy way too far.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
the most notorious thing she did was when Chicago got a bunch of COVID relief funds. Even though we had restaurants and moms and pops like failing left and right because of COVID, she gave the vast majority of it to the cops. And like that was it. It was over for her when that happened. And everybody like they voted her out so fucking hard that
She wasn't
it was
even in the runoffs.
yeah, she wasn't even in the runoff. She got absolutely slapped down because everyone was so angry about that. And she was like the only mayor in Chicago. Like, oh, a thing about Chicago, it is so notorious the way like the democratic process works here. The Democrats are ensconced. They're not going anywhere. They will always be elected. That's the thing about Chicago. And it's gotten to the point where people refer to Chicago politics, no shit, as the machine because it is just this thing that grinds through things with no regard for what's actually going on, and you have to insert yourself into the machine if you want to make any progress
I
whatsoever.
think
But
like
the
well also like it's was the Vallis guy. He was like
yeah,
uh actually a Republican saying he wasn't a
yeah,
Republican.
he's fake ass. He's fake ass. But when the mayor, we had our elections and then we had a runoff because again, we are actually a true democracy over here, and it was between a guy named Brandon Johnson, who was a school teacher and union organizer, and Paul Vallis, who was running on the
So
Democratic
oh
ticket, who was not a Democrat in the fucking slightest. He was anti-choice. He wanted to privatize schools, and he was getting millions and millions in funding from people who don't even fucking live here.
Spike,
Yes.
when you watch YouTube, do you
Yes.
have ads on?
No, no, I don't.
Okay, I do because I watch YouTube on my Roku TV, so I
Okay.
can't turn the ads off. So
Unfortunately.
I was
Mhm.
getting this recurring ad that was a 57-minute documentary about how the teachers union is bad.
Oh my fucking
Like I had to
god.
rush
What
to the TV to turn it off because it would just go. I kept like canceling. I was like, "This, what is this?" So I would cancel it and do skip ad. But one day I was in the kitchen washing dishes and I was watching a video or listening to a YouTube documentary about something, and the ad came up and it was playing. And I was like, "What the fuck?" And it just kept going. And that's when I realized, because it figured out where I live and it was trying to badmouth the teachers union. It was like trying to paint like it was very ominous. It had like ominous music and shit. I was just like, and I finally went to go sit and watch it. And I was like, "This is 57 minutes long, and they're running it as ads."
On this topic, Amanda,
Yes.
a similarly long ad keeps running in Oregon that is all about how it is a great idea for Eastern Oregon to become the state of Jefferson and everyone should vote for it. Like,
Yup.
What?
Yep.
Tell
Yeah.
me more, Kel.
it's basically, do you know about the state of Jefferson?
No.
Okay, so the state of Jefferson is Eastern Oregon and Northern California are like, we're tired of living in a blue state
Yep.
where we are outnumbered by the various cities in our state.
Mm-hmm.
So we would like to secede from California and Oregon, respectively, and form our own state, the Jefferson state.
Yeah.
Which is basically Eastern Oregon's mad that Portland outnumbers them. Northern California is mad that San Francisco and LA outnumber them.
Yeah. We have something exactly
and-
like that.
And the thing is like it is trying so hard to make itself seem reasonable because it's like we just don't get along anymore and have
Mhm.
different values. So we should just amicably part ways. Like it is very clear like we understand that you're in Portland and will not respond well to Portland being demonized, but we want you to like also agree that Eastern Oregon should get out. Like,
Yeah. Here's the thing.
Wouldn't you like it better if we were gone?
Here's the thing.
yeah, basically.
Here's
That
what's
is the whole tone of the ad, and it is a half-hour long.
Yeah, here's the thing that's actually fucking going on there for everyone who's in chat or might be listening to this eventually who does not actually understand. The country is leaning more left all the time. Republicans and the GOP explicitly know they are on borrowed fucking time as we speak. They rammed through an overturn of Roe and the dog has caught its tail. You have noticed for the last couple of election cycles, things are swinging mad fucking left. They're not fucking stupid. They see this. What these sort of secessionist campaigns, which are, by the way, 9 times out of 10, not actually funded by the people who live in the states they take place in.
Oh
Because
no,
I know
never.
because they take place in Illinois as well. There's this whole astroturfed movement for air quotes Southern Illinois to secede and no longer be part of the state. This is quite literally a cynical and fully eyed wise open attempt by people to create a red 51st state and lock in Republican presidencies for a decade. That is literally what is happening. That is literally what's going on. The people who make those proposals for secession, number one, it's unconstitutional. So
Yep.
it's not going to fucking happen. But number two, they don't live there and they don't care what's going to happen to those people because anyone who lives south of Chicago in Illinois, where straight up, here's the thing about Illinois, if you don't know, you leave Chicago, you leave Chicagoland, you drive for like an hour and a half, you are seeing Amish fucking buggies. That's how concentrated the population of Chicago is. And that's what's keeping the state blue. But those people understand if they secede, the sensible ones anyway, when they're not saber rattling and trying to look important at the barbecue, they understand that if they secede, it'll be a fucking Brexit times 10 because Chicago pays for everything in this state. We pay for your roads, we pay for your bridges, we pay for your schools, we pay for your city officials, we pay for your electricity, we pay for everything.
I don't think a lot of people in Eastern Oregon are that smart because
yeah, either
famously
moving on down 100%.
Famously, the governor's office and state senate were occupied by alt-righters. Like, so, I think like if the GOP rattling those things, they think they'd have better luck with the state of Jefferson. But it's still a stupid idea and
look, a stupid idea has never stopped anyone because, like, as someone who lived, well, not just that, but as someone who lived my entire life, except for like what 3 years in Oregon, in Texas, Texans, I don't know where this came from. One day I'm going to sit up and look where this myth came from. I feel like every other Texan I knew believed erroneously that Texas has some inherent right to secede if it ever wants to.
I double fucking dog dare you.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. But first, I don't know where this belief came from, but I heard it tons growing up. I heard it from adults. I heard it even from like teachers and classmates and like people older than me, people younger than me. There's this weird belief that Texas has some special clause that will allow it to secede if it ever wants to. This is not true. This does not exist. There's no shred of evidence or anything that can be misinterpreted to say this. And yet, like, I feel like 50% of every person I met in Texas believed that this was a thing.
Yep, some people are fucking weird.
And I don't get it. One day I'm going to sit down and I'm going to figure out where this came from. Like, hopefully, if God is kind, a YouTuber has already made a video essay about this that I can just go watch.
Hello? Wendigoon, help us. Where's this coming from?
But
Wendigoon, do the legwork for me.
Yeah.
But I just think it's funny that, like, the Jefferson ads are, like, trying to present themselves as so reasonable, and this will be better for everyone. Like, I think the other proposal is that they join Idaho.
That is wacky.
I mean, they can just go move. They can just pick up and move.
Yeah, that's the thing that gets me about all of this. If you want to,
they don't want to move. They want the state border to move.
Yeah, it's so fun. And again, it's like the thing that gets me is like, this is not even this campaign in Oregon or Illinois. It's not even being paid for by people who live here. It's literally a cynical attempt by people who don't give a shit if you suffer as long as the president is a Republican. Like people who straight up don't fucking care about you. and it's just fucking obviously it doesn't work in Illinois because fuck you, but there's always going to be like you drive an hour outside the city, you're going to find some fucking dorks who like to
Yeah.
pretend. Like the most bizarre thing I've ever heard is people in the suburbs who think they pay for Chicago. Bitch, what? Bitch, please. It's so bizarre. Yeah, you pay for a city of
just
fucking
think, like,
millions.
It,
Your little
it has slightly a better chance of working in Oregon, but that's like a 2% chance versus a 0.002.
Sorry. Okay, I was typing "Why do Texans think?" and I was gonna type the rest as "Think Texas can still secede," and I did Google auto filled it to "Why do Texans think Texas is so great?"
Yeah, well, they do a lot of like they gas themselves up real big in Texas, quite frankly, and it's a little eye rolly if you're from any other state.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes. To this though, however, to this day, I still think it's super fucking. I've said this before. It's always makes me laugh when people talk about the like "Don't mess with Texas" signs and like don't realize it's a pun about littering.
Yeah.
That always cracks me up because people are like, man, I'm driving through Texas and always "Don't mess with Texas" signs. That's so aggressive. I'm like, it's a pun, mess as in litter. It's like it's a don't litter campaign. They aren't literally putting signs up like "Don't fuck with us."
Literally all I think about when I think of Texas is literally 1 month they'll be talking about, we could secede. And then the next month, help, our power grid failed. It's just like, okay.
Yeah, no, Sky Mason
any-
saying Texas history in the state curriculum is insanely slanted toward revisionist history and stalking state pride. No, yeah, that is 100% true. And I don't know if it was in this show or the previous show we did, the podcast we did, but I mentioned before that one of the weird things that Texas teaches you is that the whole Alamo thing was about Texas independence.
Oh my God, no.
They teach you that. They teach you that the Alamo was about Texas independence. It wasn't until I was in high school and I was like reading more on my own and I was like, wait, what the fuck? We just wanted, we were just calling Mexico's bluff?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like all I say we, but you know what I mean. Texas was basically like, we want rights as a Mexican state and city, but we don't want to like be part of Mexico because they'll take our slaves away.
Yeah.
So we're gonna call your bluff and hide in this mission. And unfortunately, Mexico had an insane president at the time who did call their bluff and was awful about it. Mm-hmm. That was it. But you're taught that it was about Texas trying to become independent and fighting for its independence.
And
it's so weird. It's like, no, that's not what happened.
It's revisionist.
It's very revisionist. So Texas is just bleh.
Yeah, honest to God, Texas is reminiscent of like a little kid to me, a little kid who keeps threatening to run away from home, and part of me is just like, do it, see how long you last.
Well, they can't.
That's
the thing.
Like a 5-year-old can't run away from home. It's like, I fucking dare you, do it. You're full of shit. Brexit, do it. I'd love to see it. But yeah, I'm a little fed up with Texas state pride, especially given their current governor isn't helping things, but also, these like Trump light dudes in Florida and Texas aren't helping things.
Oh God, there was a period of time I lived in Lake Jackson, which is basically Clute. They're like one of those cities that are two cities that are so squished together they're basically the same place. That was Ron Paul's hometown.
Fantastic.
So we got to see the Ron Paul motorcade.
Gross.
They would do that just to go to get food.
Oh my God, that's so obnoxious.
They would have the motorcade just to go get food and be like, good God, nobody cares.
Oh God. Yeah, speaking of motorcades, did you see the Trump impersonator on the day Trump was arrested and charged?
I didn't see, Spike, you had to tell me about that. I didn't see shit.
Yeah, there was a guy who, if he was in a car and driving by fast, you'd be all like, oh, that's him. But people are like, he's here hours early. That seems very weird, and there's no kind of like, there's no Secret Service escort. This seems odd. But when he stopped at a stoplight, and you could get a good look at him. You could see, first of all, he weighed like 100 pounds more than Trump, and secondly, he just like was clearly not. He was clearly like making a face to look as Trump-like as possible. And it's like, okay, I'm not sure what you're trying to achieve with this, but you got me.
YouTube views, probably.
Yeah.
Uh. Anyway,
Yeah.
comics.
Comic.
I'm drawing a comic right now.
Comics.
I would like to read
am
something to
too.
people if that's okay. Is it okay if I read a series of tweets by a former co-editor of the Smut Peddler anthology, Joanna Draper Carlson, who has been
Sure.
reviewing comics and manga and graphic novels for a bazillion years.
I guess, yeah.
Sure.
And I'm just going to read this. And here's the
Is
thing.
this beforehand?
Mhm.
Is this about the sales report that just came out?
Yes. Because
Okay.
it's something I just want people. Here's the thing. These are numbers, and numbers
Scare
don't
me.
really don't really give a shit about your feelings. And what Joanna is now, I'm going to relate to you that Joanna has said. These are simply facts. Okay. Ahem. Ahem. If you are looking for a Marvel/DC style superhero comic, you are not going to find it in the top 250. That means top 250 best-selling comics. There are no superhero comics there. Comics has finally come into its own as a medium, and superheroes are not the popular flavor among the wider audience. Manga is 56% of the market. Most of the rest is kids' comic series. Raina Tegelmeier has been replaced as the most successful comics creator by Dave Pilkey. For folks who don't know, Raina is the cartoonist who did graphic novels like Smile and Drama and Ghosts, and she also did some, not all, but some of the Babysitters Club graphic novel adaptations. And Dave Pilkey, yeah,
Yeah, finish who Dave Pilkey is, and I'll have
Dave
an
Pil-
asterisk after you. Done
yeah,
that.
Dave Pilkey is the author of multiple different series of comics, but he's probably best known for Dogman.
Okay, so the asterisk next to Raina getting overturned by Dave Pilkey, which the article that Joanne is tweeting about pointed out, is part of that is because Raina hasn't had a new book in like 10 years.
That's true.
So,
It's also
I
worth
get it.
pointing
She
out not
did.
everything he does is a comic.
That is also true.
well, this thing is only looking at comics.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when they're adding up the numbers, they're saying
Okay,
comics
cool,
sold.
gotcha.
Yeah. So in the case of Raina, she might jump back up if she puts out a new book. But
I
also
don't
it's
doubt
been
it.
10 years. But it's also been 10 years, so the people who were big fans of hers are now teenagers.
Yes.
Um
And they're reading
or
Laura
older.
Olympus. But yeah.
And I think the big gap in the market right now, and that book publishers, like, I feel like the first book publisher that starts to tap into this is going to make bank,
Same.
is making mundane stories aimed at 20-year-old women that are not fantasy. Because Lore Olympus doing great, yes, good. But I feel like if some book publisher puts out whatever the comic equivalent is of Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants or whatever, like, they're gonna make bank.
That is a fair
Because
argument.
that is, because all of these girls that grew up on Reina, as an example, this is the thing that I always use as an example when I talk about this, is my cousin's daughters loved Reina's books. They don't want to read anything that's fantasy or sci-fi because it's not quote unquote real.
Okay.
So they don't want to read Lore Olympus because that's not real.
Okay.
They might read Heartstoppers, um, but they want female protagonists. So like Laura Dean keeps breaking up with me,
Mhm.
um, is the closest to getting to what I'm talking about. Um, but that's still teenagers. It's not like 20 somethings.
Yeah. There's some
Anyway,
more. There's
continue.
some more Joanna talked about here, where she is
Mm-hmm.
talking about Brian Hibbs, who is the person who goes through this data and kind of lays
Mm-hmm.
it out every year. And Joanna, quoting Brian, says, DC Comics spent a really long time as the #1 Western publisher before losing it to Scholastic, but modern DC can't get above sixth place in the rankings. So it seems obvious to me that the brain drain from their cost cutting layoffs has done them dramatically more harm than good. Like a lot of direct market retailers, Hibbs thinks of Marvel as, quote, literally synonymous with the very idea of comics for a meaningful percentage of the American population. Yet, they can only sell 3 books into the book market at over 10,000 copies. And that's with the Star Wars license. So
Mm-hmm.
that is where things stand. And again, these are not opinions Joanna is relating. These are simple numbers and facts. And they do come
Mm-hmm.
with the asterisks that no, BookScan does not account for every single solitary book sale in the US. Convention sales, no. Book fair sales, no. But the thing is, even if it did take into account book fair sales, for example, I think Scholastic's its lead would just widen because
Yeah.
Scholastic is the one publisher that can walk into your kid's school and just set up shop and be like, buy it.
Yeah.
And people will do it. People will be like, yes, book's good, buy. So Scholastic would just have a bigger lead if we were counting those. But that is
Mm-hmm.
kind of the state of comics. That's the kind of state of comics that I am working in right now. I fully expect to outsell Marvel books in the graphic novel scene in this year because
That's not hard.
yeah, it's not hard at all. What I think people have a very warped idea of what comics look,
Yeah.
and 9
Mm-hmm.
times out of 10 when people are talking about comics, I just want to be all like, that's not a comic, that's a movie.
Well, I think
That's what.
also people have this. Again, I dislike it so much. We talk about it all the time. I will not
Yeah.
talk about it more here. But people have that opinion about like, oh, a goal of a comic is to become a movie. Therefore, because these
Yeah.
movies are based off these comics must be the good. I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
also part of the conception people because people who think that usually aren't reading comics.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that is, I'm just, Joanna and Brian Hibbs and me are just relating hard fucking numbers to you. And if you don't like the hard fucking
Mm-hmm.
numbers, I don't know what to tell you.
Who
That's
are you
how things
talking
are.
to?
Every once in a while, someone will roll up in my mentions and talk about their favorite. Their absolute favorite is
Okay.
Comics is dying, which is hilarious. And yeah, if they admit sales are up, which they rarely do, they say, yeah, but it's all manga. It's like, no, it's about half manga. It's definitely not. The best selling graphic novelist in the
So
US by millions is Dave Pilkey. Millions. By
here
millions
is
and
an
millions.
interesting thing. Also, this is a similar article that's crunching data.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is a similar article came out that talked about how sales in YA are down. And this isn't comics. This is
Pros.
comics and prose. So this is
Okay.
everything.
Oh, okay.
This is everything. They're including comics in their assessment. Um, and this person tapped into what they think is wrong. Um, and and the comics front, they're like, if someone likes Dogman, there is no YA comic for them because everyone is so focused on middle grade that they are ignoring this gap. Which again goes back to my thing of there's even a bigger gap once they get to 20 somethings.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that they pointed out is I don't know how much you have seen of Book Talk, Spike.
I dip in and out. I dip in and out.
But a lot of Book Talk are adults that spend a lot of time reading YA. And so they think what is catching up with the industry is the industry saw the book talkers as adults being like, "Oh, I like this YA book, but I wish it was slightly more adult, or was darker, or had blank themes."
Uh-huh.
Um, and since mostly adults were buying YA, or at least that's who the publishers were hearing from, they started to cater to that more, and now they have actually veered out of YA without
Ever
making
saying
the
it.
full jump for being adult books.
Mm-hmm.
So even in the prose, there is this gap of someone turns 12 and then there are no protagonists their age until they're 19, 18 or 19.
I can see that. I can see that. Yeah, I just I think there is a mild, like, this is something Iron Circus contends with a lot, where
Mm-hmm.
when we age our books, what we can see these books being read by, like the age cohorts, like adults,
Mm-hmm.
YA, middle grade. We don't really do much in the sort of young readers section, so our publishing catalog starts at middle grade and goes up. But we always
Mm-hmm.
have these long talks about books we put out because it's like, this feels middle grade. It's like, yeah, but I can see at the same time. I don't want teenagers who tend to be very sensitive about that kind of thing. It's like, I don't want to read no baby book. We don't want to put them off. I think they'd like it. So should we call it YA? Because YA is it's a very squishy term.
I
YA has
I
some
kind of
very
wish book
squishy.
ratings were more about this is the minimum age and not this is the target age.
Hmm. But it's very squishy and very sort of like, fuck, like, what do we say? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
just figuring out who you want to focus on
Cuz
is
like
surprisingly stressful.
cuz like when you talk about like PG-13 movies, that could be anything from a very adult movie to a very juvenile for teenagers. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know.
Hmm.
I kind of
Yeah, I get you. I get you.
I'd prefer something like that, where it's more of like, this is the youngest we could recommend it to, not necessarily this is who it is specifically for.
Yeah. I it's interesting. It's an interesting thing to have to contend with. I do think that basically right now the mainstream, like the mainest of the mainstream of graphic novels, though, Keld, is dropping the ball when kids, like, they age out of Amulet and Bone
Mm-hmm.
and
And well, this is the other problem is think about who like wants to make comics.
yeah,
We're nerds.
yeah,
Um,
What?
and as nerds, we love fantasy and sci-fi.
true.
So it is partly a struggle like that maybe comic creators, because everyone who is a comic creator now, while some of them probably grew up on Reina, there are more that grew up on manga and sci-fi shit and because we're nerds.
Hmm.
And so what we want to make it angles that way. But I think it's gonna be hard for the industry to make that pivot to market to Reina's fan base, but grown up.
Well, yeah, I mean, the issue has always been they're risk averse. They're too big to
Yeah.
try
Well,
and,
yeah,
you know.
it's partly the publishers, but also I hear from a lot of comic artists that, oh, we want contemporary middle grade books. They usually don't complain about the middle grade part. They usually complain about oh, I don't want to talk about school problems. I want
Yeah.
to talk about space and shit. Like,
Yeah. 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 Oh, it's just there's running a publishing company has interesting issues that I didn't think I'd ever really have to worry about, but here we are.
That's why I will never.
Yeah, I can't recommend it unless you really genuinely enjoy it. I can't recommend anything I do unless I had a surprise 4-hour meeting yesterday. And it's one of those things where it's like, if for a lot of people that's like, cool, you live in hell, but this is the life I volunteered for. So
Mm-hmm.
nobody is making me do any of this at the end of the day. That's one of those things I tell myself. It's like, nobody's making you do any of this. You're here, so obviously this is a choice you made.
I know who it was. It was past Spike.
Yes, this past Spike made me do this. Shake my
Past Spike
sister.
made you do this.
Shake my fist
Get
at
her.
Yes. Fucking kick her down the stairs.
Revenge.
Anyway, I
Yeah.
have been listening to the podcast Manga Splaining still. I am now caught up. I've
Mhm.
listened to all the Manga Splaining episodes.
Sky Mason says comics
And-
are dying only because Spike is killing it. I wish.
And they're full of good titles that now I'm like, oh, I need to read these.
There is one manga that I have been meaning to read because the premise just sounds so fucking hilarious and insane. That's the one I've mentioned it before on the show. The one about when you turn 30, if you're still a virgin, you get mind reading powers.
Oh, Cherry Magic.
Yes, that's the one. I've been meaning to read Cherry Magic because it's just like, what the fuck? It sounds
You don't
incredibly different.
always get mind reading powers. Different
Oh.
versions have different powers.
Oh, okay. Well, don't ruin it for me, but okay. Also, let me see if I can't do this. Hold on.
I love the conflict of the book is he finds out his boss likes him in the first chapter, and
Yeah.
does he fuck his boss and therefore lose his magic powers?
Yeah, it's okay. So also there's a mangaka named Nagata Kabi who I've fallen behind on her stuff, but she really blew up a few years ago because she released a book called My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness.
Oh, didn't she release another one? It's something like My Pancreas Exploded or something.
Yeah, that's where
Yeah.
I am currently. It's called My Alcoholic Escape from Reality.
I did not like that one.
Really? Why not?
So turns out Japan doesn't know how to deal with alcoholics.
Not at all. True.
So there's parts that's like, hey, did you know that in other countries they treat alcoholism like it's a disease? Huh.
Oh.
And it's very like 101 information about AA, like alcoholism, and it's like yeah.
Yep.
It's for a
And
different
I
audience.
just-
It's not you.
Yeah.
It's but I feel like it would fall flat to anyone who's in the West because it is like
No, that's what I mean.
after school. Yeah.
That's what I was saying.
And her other stuff has like been more insightful.
Yeah.
Well,
my
for
lesbian-
its. But again, I feel like it wasn't made
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah, no, it was made for people in Japan.
Yeah. My lesbian
But
experience.
yeah,
Go for it.
it just felt surface level to me.
But yeah, My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness, for folks who haven't read it, can't recommend it enough. It's really fascinating. It's just about a woman she's got a lot of mental health issues and a lot of self-esteem issues, and she contracts a prostitute to basically have her first sexual experience with this woman. And strangely enough, my favorite part of it is, so when I say she's got some mental health issues, one of them is some extremely severe anxiety, which leads her to, she has plucked a bald spot on her head, and she spends multiple pages going like, what do I fucking do when I go to see my escort? What do I fucking do? What do I tell her? Like, do I just like get it out in the open and just like flash her with this big bald spot going, hey, just so you know, this is here, please ignore it? Or do I just always keep my hair in a ponytail? Oh my God, what if she runs her hands through my hair and she feels like the shiny spot where there's no hair? You're just gonna think I'm a fucking freak. Oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And it's super, it's like it's so fascinating to like see that aspect. And so if you are completely unfamiliar with Nagata Kabi, excuse me, I strongly, unreservedly recommend My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness. She has a whole bunch of other books. She did two like back-to-back ones called My Solo Exchange Diary. There's like volume 1 and volume 2 of that, which I think I feel the same way about those, Kel, that you feel about My Alcoholic Escape from Reality, which is like, yeah, they're just kind of there. They're fine.
I I think my lesbian experience with loneliness is the best one because she made it all in hindsight.
Mm-hmm.
And while there were parts of my solo exchange diary that I found interesting, the fact that she was making it as it was happening means she couldn't like digest or think about what happened.
Yeah.
Um to the point where in my solo exchange diary there is a bit where she says how much she drinks every night, and
Yeah.
I was like, that is not good for you. That
Yeah,
is a
that's
lot.
that's
Like,
yeah, yeah.
um, and then so I was not surprised at all when it gets to the end of the book that she checks into AA and is diagnosed as an alcoholic, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
My Alcoholic Escape from Reality is the latest book that is currently out, and it's just about her time in the hospital where
n-
she has like destroyed her body and she has to basically be detoxed because her pancreas is like just fucking, it's dying. She has pancreatitis, which is a thing you can get if you chronically drink. And she talks about kind of
You
how
can get
this
it
sort
from
of,
lots of stuff I found out recently.
oh yeah, you can. But pancreatitis is definitely a thing you can get from alcoholism. And she's not old, I should note this. And
mm-hmm.
she would talk about how she would just, get a highball constantly. She would go to restaurants and constantly drink highballs because being slightly buzzed or even extremely buzzed all the way up to sloshed helps with anxiety. So this is how she was coping. And
It can.
yeah, and she is just sitting
That
there trying
varies
to
person to
figure out
person.
how the fuck is she going to exist in this world now that she has to straight up be a little fucked up to deal with at all times. And that's why I like
um
My Alcoholic Escape from Reality. But the one that is coming out at the end of this year that I should frankly just go ahead and pre-order now is called My Pancreas Broke But My Life Got Better. I think that one is about her dad. So yeah. The one that I need to get that is out but I have not yet gotten is called My Wandering Warrior Existence. And I don't know anything about that one, but
um
I am fascinated by this person's fucked up destroyed life. So I want to read it.
uh I um I read Witch Hat Atelier, or
Mm-hmm.
however you say that last word in that title.
Atelier, yeah.
Um which is fucking gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just want to print up the pages and put them all over my wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally pulled the trigger on it because of Manga Explaining's review of it. For everything that everyone told me about the plot, I probably would have read it sooner if they
Mm-hmm.
had told me that magic is a metaphor for art. Like,
Yeah.
and that's pretty key. And like, um, I think what part of what makes the book unique, and also that's why it's fitting that it's so fucking beautiful.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, I have to admit I have not
and
read it at all.
yeah, um, it's beautiful. It's
Hmm.
beautiful.
It's,
It's in a world where people are told like, oh, you have to be born a witch to become a witch.
mm-hmm.
Um, and the main character finds out the secret that no, anyone can become a witch and do magic. You just have to practice. So it's literally, oh, you have to be born talented to become an artist.
Ah, okay.
No, you can become an artist if you just try really hard. Like,
Yeah.
um, so,
Yeah, I think
um,
there isn't a person in this fucking podcast and probably very few people in the fucking chat right now who don't understand that this is not magic. This is
Stop
hours.
devaluing my magic.
Yeah, this is hours of sitting there going, "How the
Don't
fuck
share
does
my
thumbs work?
secrets.
How does the thigh attach to the buttock? Wait, what happens if it's at this angle? What happens if it's at that angle?
If
I
you
need
share
reference
my
for this."
secrets, I won't be special anymore, Spike. Quit it.
Yeah, I just think a lot of people. Okay, time to make like sort of a gross blanket statement. I think a lot of people,
I'm
and I've
hitting
said this
record.
before. Yeah, go for it. Fuck it. I think a lot of people.
I'm
not just
joking.
in
There's no
art-
record. We're streaming.
There is definitely a record. This goes up afterwards.
Yeah,
But there's not a button
it-
for me to.
it
Never
stays
mind.
yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, and I'll fucking stand by it because it's something I've kind of felt for years. I think that there are people who are looking for the cheat code in life. You know, the like the up, down,
Oh
left, right.
yeah.
There are people who think that if they can just figure out the button mash, tomorrow they'll be everything they wanted to be and have everything they've ever wanted to have. And I think the motivation behind a lot of folks asking for advice is they want to be told the cheat code. Because I think that's why the
Yeah.
majority of advice that is even solicited advice is not taken. I think that is because it's quite frankly not what people want to hear. And as a result, I kind of like I have shied away from giving advice because not only do I believe that, but I've said this before too. I think a lot of the people who solicit advice from me these days are in their 20s, and I am 44, and I haven't been 20 in a long time.
There's
And
still some advice that's universal.
there is some universal advice, but when people come up with like, okay, so how do I get a Kickstarter funded? It's like I don't fucking know. It's like I don't know how you get a Kickstarter funded.
This is probably people's least favorite answer.
Yeah.
I'm like, we'll do a webcomic for 10 years.
Yep, that'll do it.
That's why I always just ask for context when people ask me stuff. Because sometimes people give you context, and you're like, oh, I literally know exactly what to tell you. And sometimes the context says, oh, you just informed, we have now singled me out as the wrong person to ask. I actually was really happy at C2E2. People came to me for portfolio reviews. It was really nice.
Oh, bless.
I really liked it. I love doing
they,
portfolio reviews.
Were they like little babies?
I don't know how old they were. I can't tell by looking anymore. I'm too old.
No obvious teens then?
I don't know. Spike, I've met teens with beards and children. I don't judge by looks anymore.
Okay.
Also, remember someone kept calling me kiddo. Look, I'm not gonna do that to someone else.
Yeah. But I feel that while there is sort of a general dispensation of advice I can distribute to people who ask, like, so what is general advice? And my general advice is the same shit you're gonna hear from anybody my age, which is just like, work hard, make friends, get lucky. And that is very generalized. And when people ask me for very specific stuff, I know this will shock everyone listening, but like recently that has taken a certain turn. It's like, well, how do I get a cartoon made? And it's like, I don't fucking know. it's hard. And here's the thing. Lackadaisy was an alignment of the planets. It was the exact definition. I think was it Aristotle who
Right
said
place,
this?
right time.
And I think it might have been Seneca who said something like, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And that's very much what Lackadaisy was. And I don't think it could have happened with any other three people other than me, Fable, and Tracy. I just don't think that could have happened any other way. So nobody wants to hear, it's like, how do I get a cartoon made? It's like, well, you just fucking sit down and make it. Because again, when people are asking, how do I get a cartoon made? That's not what they're asking me. They're asking me, how do I get a cartoon made super high quality that gets 5 million hits in a week? And it's like, yeah, it's like, you fucking can't. I'm not trying to be mean, but you can't.
I remember at ages ago, someone asked me, how do you get artists to be in your anthologies?
You pay them.
Yeah, no, that's what I told them. You pay them. And they were like, oh.
Yeah.
Like they did not like that that was the answer. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Jay Brooks said, I was once told the longer you can afford to stay around, the better chance your work will make you lucky. And even so, it is very slight. Absolutely. Things could have gone a completely different way for me, for Iron Circus, for Lackadaisy, for Band Book Club, for all the stuff I publish. A lot of it is basically a refusal to leave and being around long enough that it's clear I'm not going anywhere. So I have to be acknowledged. It's just, it's the fucking truth. And again, a thing I think is important to point out is I am no overnight success, not at all, not remotely.
yeah.
And I don't really work with anyone who was an overnight success at all. I know it might feel that way,
That's
like
just
when you
because
see
you weren't paying attention. You didn't see him coming.
exactly, fucking exactly. There
Like
are
almost
people,
every time you see someone like who came out of nowhere, there's a bunch of other people going, "Oh, it's about fucking time. I've been waiting for them to take
yeah,
off."
exactly. And it's like, yeah, Rob Liefelds do exist. People who were 18 and then like fucking hit superstardom and stay there. They do exist. There, but chances are great it won't be you. Chances are great it's not most people. And that's
Like
okay.
if you are older than 19, then it's not you.
Yeah, yeah,
So
exactly. And again, Rob Liefeld was in his own way too. He was also that sort of like alignment of planets that he was just right place, right time, around the right people with the right level of ability, and you couldn't do that again. It's a bottle
yeah.
flip from the observation deck of the Empire State Building that lands upright in the hand of a ballerina from the New York Ballet Company while she's
I
being
just
held aloft
watched
by Michael Jordan. You know, it gets to happen once.
I just watched Nope,
Oh yeah.
and this isn't a spoiler, but there is a character who one of the themes is like how super rare occurrences do happen.
Yeah.
And there is a character that during a tragedy, one of the victims of the tragedy, their shoe came off and then was perfectly straight, like in the air, upright, like
Mm-hmm.
um it and they like saw that while the tragedy was happening and they were like the one person that was unscathed, and they take it to mean that they were like chosen by God,
Uh-oh.
and or have some like mystical connection with the universe,
Yeah, the shoe did
when
that for
really
them.
Mm-hmm.
like they took the shoe as a sign that they
Right.
had some mystical connection in the universe. And it no, they don't. Like it's just sometimes um
Yeah.
like
Shit just
just a
happens.
Well,
random
I mean, the
chance the
shoe.
shoe fell.
Well, also
The shoe huh
it was also the fact that the shoe doing that made another thing happen. So it was the
yeah,
connecting those dots was something they did. Like it prevented a
yeah,
bad thing from happening.
yeah, they were unscathed because they fixated on the shoe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're
We're
like
trying to be as
they
unspoilery as possible.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Please don't spoil. Please
No,
don't
no, yeah,
spoil.
yeah. That's what we're. That's if you're wondering why we're talking weird, that's why.
Yeah.
because I know Spike doesn't like spoilers. So yeah,
Yes.
so it
No,
was
I
like
really don't.
We're
yeah,
being good.
so I just like that theme of like no, sometimes random shit just happens. Like
Yeah, and it's not you being
and
special
you
or
can
favored by the universe.
yeah, you can take advantage of it. Um like but um yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Um
I a lot of people kind of also fixate, in my opinion, in my experience, in my lived anecdotal experience, a lot of people also fixate on thinking that there's going to be this solid finish line to cross, or this one obvious moment where it's like, okay, when this happens, you will have made it. You will be a
Yeah.
professional. You'll be taken seriously by your peers. You will be inducted into the club at this exact moment. That is when that happens. Like, no, That's just going to happen, and chances are you won't notice when it happens, and you will wonder, has it happened, until it cannot be denied that it happened at some point. You just weren't aware of the exact point. That's how it's been for me.
Nice.
Unrelated.
What's it like, Spike?
Barbie movie looks like it's gonna fucking slap.
Maybe I might watch it. I just have to. My problem with movies like how the Barbie movie appears to be is I like it when they hang a lampshade on the absurdity, like the fact that there are just like multiple Barbies and Kens. Sure, that seems interesting, but at the same time, I'm very worried it might be a little too self-congratulatory and quippy, which is kind of obnoxious.
I don't know. From what I've seen of it, it seems like it's gonna be a little bit surreal.
Oh, a little bit.
Which, yeah, that's what I'm interested in, is the surrealness. Like, even if it's not good, I feel like it will at least be interesting. Which is why I want to see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not motivated.
that,
If I hear it's good, maybe, but I haven't seen anything that makes me go, I am interested. This is an experience I want to have.
Yeah. I've been incredibly busy,
I mean,
so
I'm
there's
going
a
to watch it from the comfort of my home and not in theaters.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Yeah, there.
Well, I mean, oh,
I've been so incredibly busy. I've been building up this massive list of things to watch. Like, I still haven't seen Everything Everywhere All at Once. I really want to see that. A24 has been teasing a film called Maxine. I would like to see that. That's not out yet though. I still haven't seen X, which is bizarre because I really, really, really fucking love Mia Goth and Pearl. I think Pearl was excellent. And I
I
should
don't
just go
know
see.
what X is.
X
What is
is
it?
a movie that takes place in the 70s where a van full of like free spirit types go on a farm, and they get permission from the farm owner to shoot a porno, I believe, in his barn or his outbuildings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I now know what it is. I've seen trailers for it.
Yeah, and Mia Goth is in that, and Mia Goth is in like a lot of A24 stuff. And A24 has become one of those studios for me where if it just says A24, I'm giving it a chance.
Because it will at least be interesting, even if it's not good.
Yeah, exactly. And for folks who haven't seen Pearl, it's so fucking. And part of the reason I'm thinking of Pearl is I was just, without spoilers, we were discussing people who think there's going to be this one moment they have where they have made it. Congratulations. And that is a feature of Pearl, that delusion that there is going to be a big break. I guess that's what I should call it. That big breaks are a thing. And while big breaks do exist, I think they are the minority of professional experiences, and you should not rely on having one. You should not rely
I
on
think
bumping into Guillermo del Toro at the soda fountain and him going, "I like your moxie, kid. You want to make a movie?"
is that what he sounds like? I had no idea.
I was talking to friend of the show, Kevin Wilson,
Hi, Kevin.
about nepotism babies in
Nepo
Hollywood,
babies,
and how
yes.
there's Hollywood royalty who's like are just multiple generations. And Kevin and I were discussing how there isn't really that in video games
Yeah.
or comics. And I was like, that's because for comics there isn't enough money to warrant like
Yep.
people staying in for the sake of staying in.
Yep.
Like, the closest you get to a family of American comics people are the Cuberts. And they're hardly like
Yeah, they don't really
instant
count.
successes.
Yeah.
I mean, they count. Both of those boys work for Marvel now and draw just like their dad. But so
And to be fair, newspaper
I don't know what
comics.
their kids are gonna. I don't know what their kids are gonna do. I know their sister used to be an editor at DC. I forget if she's still there.
Yeah.
But like, so theoretically, they could be, but like, it's not. They're not as big a deal. As like this person, like Carrie Fisher was related to 9 bazillion different Hollywood people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think one of the
And
most interesting things people
but
is look up who's related to
But
who.
that story of getting discovered randomly on the street
Hmm.
was true when Hollywood first got started because no one knew what the fuck they were doing.
Exactly.
And it's just we need a person, you're here, get in there.
Yeah. And by the way,
And
that whole bit about the soda fountain, like that's what happened for real. To look her up, her name is she went by rather her Hollywood name was America's Sweater Girl. Which is like a terrible thing to call her. I believe that was either Lana Turner. I think it was Lana Turner because that was back when like rocket bras were like really popular. So she
Mhm.
was very pokey outy in her rocket bra, and she was straight up just at a soda fountain. And a director was like, "I like the look of you. Do you want to be in a movie?"
yeah. Um that does still somewhat happen today because I that is how David Boreanaz got hired to be on Angel. He was walking his dog.
Mm-hmm.
Um and
Yeah,
the casting director said, "Do you want to be a vampire?" And,
yeah, but like
uh,
Gwyneth
yeah,
Paltrow, her fucking godfather is Steven Spielberg. That's where she came from.
yeah,
You know?
and Nicolas Cage is the nephew of
Of Coppola.
Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
And,
like,
and if you
um,
just kind of like go through Hollywood, it's like there's a joke that says like never ask a woman her age, a man his salary, or the latest 30 under 30 why their parents' names are blue in their Wikipedia article.
um,
So
then,
yeah.
yeah. So it's basically, video games. I think doesn't have that because it has been around long enough. Like the '80s
Well,
was the you're here, get involved
mhm.
times of video games. Um, and now we're at like,
Jay Brooks is making a
I
point
guess,
though that he's saying that there can
yeah.
never be nepo babies in video games because video game companies, like the big famous rich ones, dissolve faster than cotton candy in a puddle after a game is
Yeah.
done being made.
Yeah, but if you think about Nepo babies in Hollywood, like the actors are just like, oh, we need a kid for this role.
Mm-hmm.
We'll use the director's nephew, or we'll use in Mad Men. The showrunner's son is Sally's neighbor friend. Like they're like, we need a kid like for this bit part. Grab your kid. Um, and so that like um in video games, like if you have someone who's like, oh, we need an extra helper on this and my kid likes art, um he can be one of the designers on this game, but now he
Mm-hmm.
has a portfolio credit that like other people don't have.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, it could still happen in video games, even though the big companies
Mm-hmm.
dissolve and fall apart over and over again.
Yeah. And of course, it should be noted here, everyone, like in case you don't know, I'm sure a lot of people in here do, but part of the reason that shit happens where there are these studios that make an acclaimed beloved game and then they're instantly ripped to shreds by their parent company is strictly capitalism. That's strictly fucking capitalism because these large companies, more often than not, are publicly owned companies. They're traded on the stock market and they are obliged to give either biannual or quarterly reports to stockholders, and those need to look good or their company will literally be worth less by the time they are done speaking. So if they can make an amazing game and it sells millions of copies, that's good. But you know what's even better? Those people that made that game, the 150 people that made that game, firing them all. So now you're not paying their salaries. So when you report your balance sheet, it's millions of dollars lighter in in company in concert with the millions you're making on the game they made. It's incredibly short-sighted because instead of holding on to talented people who understand how the production works, understand the lore of the game if it's that kind of game, and know the system, you discard them all and just
Mm-hmm.
leave it to the wind. And I think that definitely has affected the quality of games, especially games coming out from AAA companies.
Yeah, and so but yeah, so I still think that nepo babies could happen in video games simply by the nature of the fact that sometimes you need an extra body and a family member is there.
Yeah,
Um
nepo babies can happen, in my opinion, in kind of any structure. If it's from like your Uncle Steve's plumbing business all the way up to politics.
yeah. Um and but I also think like most nepo babies are not bad in of themselves.
No, they're not bad
It's more
people.
yeah, it's more that the uh capitalism gives rich people free time to pursue art and whatnot.
Yeah,
Like
that's important. Yeah.
example, Nick Kroll is in fucking everything now.
Like what?
And oh, he wrote Big Mouth. He is guest starred on What We Do in Shadows. He is running History of the World Part 2. He's in a bunch of shit. Like
Okay.
um and he is like the writer on it. And he is not a nepo baby because his parents did not work in Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
but his dad is a billionaire Wall Street guy.
Oh yes.
So he basically had enough like of a safe financial safety net that he could just stick around until like people noticed him.
Yeah.
To go back to the luck is when preparedness meets opportunity,
Uh-huh.
he could spend all his time getting prepared and trying to be in the correct place at the correct time.
Yeah.
And now
You're
he's
make
in a bunch of shit.
you're making me think, by
So
the way, of Dear Evan Hansen.
yeah.
Does anyone here remember that anymore? Because woof,
I mean,
fucking woof. Yeah.
I like musicals, so I of course know all about it.
Yeah. Okay, everyone. A while ago, a movie was released. It's based on a musical. It's called Dear Evan Hansen. It's about a teenager who commits suicide, and through a wacky misunderstanding, everyone thinks this teenager who committed suicide, his last act was to write kind of a nerdy, depressed wallflower of a boy, a final letter that talks about, oh, you're so wonderful and valuable, and you need to remember
Well,
that.
it's about their great friendship that they had.
Yeah, the completely fake, non-existent. And the thing is, like, the parents of this boy who committed suicide immediately latch on to the depressed boy, because it's like, oh my god, this was a side of our incredibly troubled and abusive son we never saw. Please tell us all about him. And the boy who suicided, his family is well off, and there is a mother and a father, and importantly, kind of gross, but importantly, a cute sister that nerd boy is crushing on. And so he kind of leans into this and goes along with this fucking lie that he was best friends with this really troubled outcast boy, and that really troubled outcast boy showed him this whole side of himself that no one else got to see. And that's kind of the heart of Dear Evan Hansen. And the guy who plays Evan Hansen, both on the stage and in the film, is a guy named Ben Platt. And Ben Platt's dad, his name, and his mom's name, actually, they're both blue on Wikipedia. And that's how you get to star in a off-Broadway play.
Well, didn't his dad direct it?
His dad paid for it.
Produced it. So
Produced
his dad
it.
funded
Okay.
the whole movie.
Yeah.
So his son could star in it.
Yeah. And what a surprise that this guy in his, like, during the time it was on the stage, he was in his like early mid-20s, and suddenly he was starring in this big, close but not quite Broadway production. And wow, I guess that's what gets to happen when your father has won a Tony Award twice and won a Primetime Emmy Award twice and a BAFTA Award, and is producing all this film and TV, and it's just like he collaborates with Walt Disney. Surprise! That's how you get to star in the play in your 20s.
Well, it's also
a 20-year-old was going to star in that play regardless
Yeah.
of who their parents were,
Like, we must say
because
torture.
that's who you get to play teenagers on stage.
Yeah, true, true, true.
Um,
But I mean,
like I
that's just
yeah,
what. Yeah.
the movie is a more clear-cut case of this movie only exists so he can be the star of a movie when
Yeah.
he is far too old to be the playing this teenager. Um,
Yeah, because people and
Especially when the girl he has a crush on is age appropriate to her casting.
yeah,
Um, I
that's an
love
important. Yeah.
I love Jenny Nicholson's.
Oh yeah.
Why is this sweaty Blues Clues man hitting on this teenager?
Yeah. If you haven't seen Jenny Nicholson's takedown of Dear Evan Hansen, I just absolutely could not recommend it enough because while there are stage and film actors who are in their mid 20s, other side of 25 or so, who absolutely can pass for teenagers, like absolutely, those people exist. This guy,
Especially on
Ben Platt,
stage.
yeah, Ben
Yeah.
Platt is not one of them. Not one of them.
Yeah.
They tried in that movie. God, how they tried to make him look like a teenager, and it did not work.
Because here's the thing is, um, he, I think, wrote, Ben Platt, I think, wrote Dear Evan Hansen,
Uh huh.
which is partly why he starred in it. It's the same reason why Lin-Manuel Miranda stars in
Oh, for
Hamilton,
sure,
is,
for sure.
um, I'm writing a musical and I'm going to be the star.
Which is a totally normal thing. Lots of people do.
Yeah,
Just a lot of people don't. Their dad can't
I'm
finance
looking it
the whole
up to
thing.
make sure I'm not talking out of my ass. It looks
Yeah.
like he did not write it.
Oh, okay.
He just got cast in it.
Yeah, and Sky Mason
Um,
is saying Ben Platt is a good singer. Oh yeah, it's like he has
yeah,
very good stage presence as well. He has very good just sort of control of his body too, and he can sing very well. And that's the thing. Like Whitney Houston also sang extremely well, which is a thing that probably gets to happen when your singing coach is like Aretha Franklin's best friend or something. It's like Whitney Houston is also in many ways a nepo baby. She was surrounded by incredibly talented, prominent, and connected gospel and popular music singers. And that's where Whitney Houston came from. I would never say she's not good, but that is simply a fact.
yeah, it's more like nepo babies and the rich in general
Yeah.
have more time to focus in on a craft.
And access to more expertise.
Which is why you should support basic income.
Yes,
Like
absolutely.
universal basic income, so that way everyone can
Mhm.
pursue their craft. At least they might not have access to experts, but they can
Mhm.
pursue their craft.
Yeah, and again, it's like it's one of those things where we're not saying these people are bad for taking advantage of familial and professional connections. It's a thing that has been done since the beginning of time. It's a thing people want the best for their child, and if they have spent their lifetime, like Whitney Houston's mom, spent her lifetime like fucking canoodling with the industry and fucking winning Grammys and being this incredibly celebrated gospel singer. So she has accrued all of this talent and all of these connections. And so when her daughter goes, I'd like to sing, it's like, oh, so that kid's just gonna get a leg up. And that's just how it is. That's just how life is. And I think that if we kind of accepted that, the world would be a healthier place mentally. Because that's where these people who come from thinking that if they don't make it onto 30 under 30 lists, they're fucked.
But I do think
I don't think I've ever met anyone who thinks so.
universal basic income will get us more interesting art out there.
Amanda, those lists exist to make people feel bad, in my opinion.
No, never mind.
Oh.
That's not what I said. I don't think I personally met anyone who actually cares about those.
Yeah, I think that there's been a high level.
It wasn't a state. It wasn't like I wasn't making a comment. I was just talking out loud.
Okay. Well, there are definitely people who, I mean, it's on their bucket list and they consider it that point where, oh, great, I've made it. And as a cynical person who is old, I think it's important to note that those are marketing tools. All of those people, if not all, 90% of the people on those kinds of lists, they have publicists who submit them for those lists. They aren't just plucked out of the aether and said, "Oh, wow, we like your Moxie kid. You're going to be on our 30 under 30 list." No, their mom and dad hired a publicist for
I
them
I think
and
it's
is
worth.
also hmm?
No, 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 I wasn't saying anything important. Keep going.
Okay, and is also financing whatever venture is getting them on that list because marketing is important and publicity is important. And if they can get, daddy's favorite little boy or mommy's favorite little girl standing on the observation deck of the Empire State Building with their arms crossed, looking smug, and the words 30 under 30 next to their face, that's something that goes on their resume. That's something that goes on their LinkedIn. It matters. And that's them getting their lovely, precious, perfect child the best possible start. And it doesn't actually
Mhm.
mean a ton, but I have seen it just fuck people up because the 30 under 30 lists, they have things like, oh, he's 23 and he owns his own animation studio. Oh, speaking of animation studios, look up who owns Leica and why. Anyway, uh, things like that. And it's people read that, they go, shit, well, I'm 27 and I'm not doing half that. Fuck. And it's like, yeah, probably because your parents don't work in the industry you're pursuing your career in. And that's just life.
I feel like I need to, like, sometimes the show needs a disclaimer. Um,
Yeah.
I don't get to talk to Spike that often anymore because Spike is busy. So
I agree.
sometimes I kind of forget we're live, and I'm palling around with Spike, and I'll say things that maybe like I shouldn't be saying on a stream, not because they're mean or anything.
Oh.
No, but just because I feel like, for example, I rib you a lot.
Yeah.
I rib you a hell of a lot, but it's also like I'm getting like a weeks of socialization in, but also with an audience. And sometimes I feel bad because it comes off like I'm real critical. I know, but it comes off like I'm real critical of you, and I don't like
I
that.
appreciate when people are critical of
Right,
me.
but I think there's a limit, and I feel like I need to like explain that I am also like trying to like power through a week's worth of socialization at once. So I'm a little
Oh.
gung ho, but at the same time, I also will sometimes just say things. I'm not making a point. I'm just kind of thinking out loud, just to make a noise, if that makes sense.
Okay. If you feel it is important to add a disclaimer, I will not stop you.
Well, I just did,
I
and you didn't
put
stop me.
Oh,
So
I
ha.
I thought you meant like write it in the description.
I put a thing in our private chat.
Oh. Well,
Let me go to-
I click over and read
That
it
is
and
gonna
not
make
tell
you
anybody.
cackle. Don't read it.
Ah!
Ooh, gross witch laugh.
You're right. Okay, never mind.
Gross witch laugh. Gross witch laugh. Oh God. Yes, that is very true. That
That's
is a
true.
statement you have
Oh.
made, Kel, and you have jogged Amanda's memory, I believe.
Yes, you're correct. I just remove bad people from my memory. Apparently.
You just purify occasionally mentally.
Yeah, I just detox my brain and go, I've never met a bad person in my life.
But yeah, people, I mean, they absolutely do care. Not everyone. I certainly don't care. A lot of people don't care, but people do care. And that's where you get shit where people are in their mid-20s and they're talking about how they're failures. And I'm like, you're barely alive. You haven't had time to fail. You've been an independent entity on
Yeah.
Earth for less than 5 years.
Oh, like that's like the whole when you get like those like people who are like 20 and they're like, "Oh, I've never fallen in love and I've never been in a relationship.
Yeah.
I guess I'm doomed." I'm like, "You have been not a child for like 2 maybe 4 years depending on where you live."
Yeah, exactly.
Like, shut up.
Exactly. It's like I get that you're young and you're experiencing a lot of things for the first time and
Yes.
it feels very like, okay, here it is, it's finally happening. Here it is, it's finally happening. No, baby. It's going to keep happening for decades if you're lucky. It's just going to keep, but everything happens so much. That will be your life.
Shit
I
is always
promise.
happening and it never stops happening.
It's just going to keep happening and keep happening and keep happening. I promise.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jay Brooks, we were talking about 30 under 30 lists and how they're literally just marketing that people essentially buy their way into. And that's just a thing. I mean, that's just how it is. We're not Olympic sprinters. We're not NBA or WNBA players. We are not fashion models. We don't have Best Buy dates. We can keep doing this for decades yet.
That's why I
And
always tell people I when it's not my job to be hot. No one's paying me to be hot. If you want me to
yeah.
be attractive, you need to start investing in me. You need
Exactly.
to start like buying. So you need to start funding my diet and my clothes and my exercise and all that shit. If you want me to be attractive, if that's important to you, to not look at me and go ew. Well, you need to start funding my life.
Exactly. Exactly. And I just have this hmm, you have a lot of time to air quotes make it, folks. You do. You may not have a ton of opportunities. I'm not going to bullshit you. And you know what? You may never air quotes make it, whatever that may mean to you. And that's kind of something you need to accept. That's just how life is. There are no guarantees. But if you're still at 25 fucking struggling, like that's literally normal. That's
Welcome to being
literally normal.
25.
Yeah, that's your 20s. As a person looking back, my 40s have been the best decade so far. And I
I'm
wouldn't go back.
35. I'm still struggling.
Yeah, in my 20s, I was slim, I was muscular, I was prettier than I'll ever be again, and still wouldn't go back to that because my 40s are such an across the board level up. You have time. It's okay. You have time.
I mean, not really.
Stop it. We're all gonna
I mean, you could die at 35, like the guy who made Rent.
Yeah, I mean, you could die at 35. You could, all kinds of terrible things could happen to you. We could all get
I mean,
hit
you
by
could
a bus
also just
tomorrow.
not care.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all. That's not me being mean. That's also an option. Like, I do not personally have very high aspirations, but I don't think that's a flaw.
No, that is just you.
Like, I want to
Um,
make comics. I want to afford to make comics. I don't care beyond that.
Yeah. Oh my God, Kristen, make that into a T-shirt. Sugar Daddy up or shut up.
There you go. I
Oh
would
my
wear that.
fucking God, that is get that on T Republic right now. Sugar Daddy up or shut up.
Like right now, drawing. I'm returning to drawing my webcomic that will never make money, and I am at peace with that. It is for fun.
Yeah, I do two web comics very poorly and ineffectively, and I do them because I love to do them, and nothing is making me do them. I wish I could do them more, but the life I chose is not allowing me a lot of time for that right now. I will continue to do them, but they'll update very infrequently while I'm currently in the state I am in, you know?
I just like to draw my terrible dog man.
Yeah, and I just want to. It's like shit hasn't even begun to get weird in either of the comics I do, and I want to show you what I think about literally all day, every day. Like these two environments where there's this like fucking horrifically damaged, prickly, awful man, and like the fucking immortal void he is trying to be friends with because no one else will have him, and like these three idiots living under a tree somewhere. Like people are.
What
Oh,
about someone starting again at 40, like brain things? So now, it's never too late to start. Hey, Spike, who was that creator who like busted into the comic scene and like, God, what was it?
It is the woman who made the comic My Favorite Thing is Monsters, and she became a New York Times bestseller in her 50s for the first time.
And wasn't that the first
That was
comic?
her first-
Yeah, that was like her first comic.
Yeah, Emile Ferris. Emile Ferris is her name, and I
Like-
recommend Favorite Thing is Monsters. She's fantastic.
Like, here's the thing: it's never too late. It just depends on what you're aiming for and what your time frame is. Like, if you just say, "I want to get published," that's pretty doable. That is very broad, and like, it's like before I die. I mean, that's yeah, you can like dedicate yourself to that.
Yeah, and George R. Martin,
If
basically made the choice that he was going to try for
Now-
a bestseller in his late middle age.
well, also, but that's pretty broad. It's like I want to get published. That's pretty broad and pretty doable. But if
Yeah.
it's I want to get published and it become a bestseller and me to win awards before I'm 40, well, that's a little specific.
That is a little specific.
That's a lot
and I
of
think-
things to check off, and like, okay, we can't, no guarantees.
Yeah, and I'm one of those people who thinks the age requirement is thoroughly unnecessary.
Yeah.
Thoroughly.
I mean, it does make sense for in the fact that, like, for example, like we've talked about before, like if you want to start a family, there are
Mhm.
some things like you may have to give up after that.
Yeah.
So that does, in that situation, like, yeah, no, there kind of is a time,
It sounds
a clock.
really
Yeah.
goofy, but life
The
is about
stuff that you
compromises.
have, yeah, stuff that has a time limit
Yeah.
is stuff that's like, I want to
Compliment.
be in the NBA. You
I want to be
can,
a supermodel.
there's,
I want to run a
yeah,
4-minute mile. Yeah, that stuff has time
like,
limits.
yeah, stuff. Well, yeah. So I want to be in the Olympics. Like, there is a time limit on that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um. So,
It makes sense
I
to talk
think,
about ages
yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah. I think, what's interesting is, I think that's why sports manga
Mhm.
does well as shonen, because they're, you have to succeed at those when you're young, or you're not going to
Yeah.
when you're older.
Yeah.
um there, that makes them ideal, because we make jokes about how, like, oh, here's a protagonist that's 15 and they're saving the world, and the ancient decrepit person is revealed to just be like 32 or something, and like, um but in something like Yuri on Ice,
Mhm.
like when he is, I think, 21, and like, oh, maybe I should retire.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, because professional ice skating is like, if you're not at the top of your game at like 21, you're probably never going to be at the top.
Yeah.
Um
And Christian Cheney in chat just said a lot of women creators drop off the mat when they have kids because but there are some who come back. And I have to say, like, I was very aware of that when I was in my like 20s. I was extremely aware of, back then especially, the pattern, the reproducible pattern of a woman is doing really well in her creative industry and is on sort of this steady upwards incline, because even back then I was aware most people don't pop off immediately. They have this
mhm.
steady rise, and then they have one fucking kid and they're gone for 4 years and
there is
they never recover professionally.
there is an artist at Marvel who I'm not going to name,
Uh-huh.
because they are not telling Marvel that they have children,
I have seen that
because
happen before.
it's not just kid eats all your time up,
Yeah.
but also, um companies see, oh, you're pregnant, you're not going to get anything done for the next few years, and stop hiring you.
Oh,
And then,
absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
especially with Marvel, where like it is work for hire, and like, who's the hot new thing right now, like, once you're gone for a couple of years, that they're done with you, basically.
Yeah, you might as well be dead. Yeah.
Yeah. So this Marvel artist basically had a baby in secret.
And I do not blame them.
Be- yeah. Um
Yeah. Yeah, it's fucking rough out there. And it's not fair, but life is not fair. That's just kind of a thing you accept and you try and work around. Everyone in this fucking call right now has a inherent immutable disadvantage in the current hierarchy, and we know that. If
No.
Stop it, Amanda. And when we know that, Amanda,
No.
stop. And we figure out, that how much harder are we going to have to work to get where we want to be? And the answer is pretty fucking hard. It doesn't help that we don't want to do mainstream things,
I
air quotes
mean,
again, by and large.
that's pretty broad.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's one of those very subjective things. What people consider a mainstream thing to do. So yeah, it's not been an easy road for anyone here, but it is a road that we kind of, I think, like to think we went in with our eyes open, that like this is not going to be easy. I
I
for
mean,
one,
you say that like
I
I've made it anywhere.
Amanda, stop.
I'm just
Uh,
saying.
Amanda, stop. The thing that I think about a lot, and this is something I've talked about on Twitter like numerous times, and I think it's something a lot of people of color, raised by people of color that are my age specifically, can relate to, is that, you got a speech when you were a kid. And for me, that speech was like, you're a girl and you're black. And so people are going to underestimate you like shit, and they're going to go out of their way to disrespect and disadvantage you, and you're going to have to work way harder than everyone else. And that's just kind of like, I'm not saying it's cool and I'm not saying it's fair, but that's just kind of how it is. Like that, those when the cosmic dice were rolled, you were born as a black girl in the United States in 1978, and that's just how it is.
What was your
And
mother's maiden name?
why?
No reason.
Jones.
Thank you. I'm writing this down.
All right.
Why?
Yeah. So now we can steal your identity.
I know. Well, good luck with that. But anyway, the deal was that, you just have to work harder. And that's kind of like been my attitude my entire fucking life, where I just have to like work harder. And I find it especially ironic that like the line now for so many people is that I personally have an unfair advantage because of the exact things that required me to work harder than anyone else. But okay, Steve, yes, that's it. I'm cheating. That's the answer. I had to build an entire fucking publishing company just to stake a claim in comics, but I had an unfair advantage.
Yeah.
You just had to go to a portfolio review. But it's me who is cheating. Okay. Like, sorry
But
about
Spike,
your...
you don't understand. Their graphic novel about how women are vicious, cruel creatures that won't date him.
Why won't women like me?
Very poignant and groundbreaking, even though there are 50 other books with that.
Yeah,
plot.
exactly. It's like, I don't know what to tell you, Steve. Like, fucking sucks to suck. Mediocrity isn't enough to make it anymore, and I guess that hurts. Have you tried not being mediocre? Stop it.
Wee.
But yes, anyway.
I came here to have a good time.
Anyway, it is 10. It is 10. So we can sign off here, I think. Unless y'all have any closers.
First she breaks me down
Stop it.
to pieces.
Amanda.
Then she leaves.
Amanda, you're excused.
Okay, I'll leave now. Goodbye.
Okay, everyone.
I want you to know
Yeah.
that I used to type as my header Iron Circus Geek Show, hosted by me, and then all of our names.
Uh-huh.
It now says hosted by some nerds.
I mean, accurate,
Yeah.
truthful, no lies detected.
True facts.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
everyone, hi, what's up? I'm Spike. You can find me on Twitter at iron_Spike, and you can find me on co-host, Pillow Fort, Spoutable, and Hive as Iron Spike, all one word. I got there first, so I didn't need the underscore. Co-host features my comic called Ordinary, about a monster who is friends with another monster, updates extremely infrequently. My comic on Pillow Fort features 3 idiots who kill you for money. That also updates extremely infrequently. I run Iron Circus Comics and Iron Circus Animation. Please watch Lackadaisy here on YouTube. We have accrued 5 million hits in 8 days. It is our first, very, very first animation project, and it is popping the fuck
Can we turn that
off.
into our featured? Ignore me, Toby. I'm thinking out loud.
It is popping the fuck off. If you like what you see, please recommend it to your friends, to your family, to your discords, to what have you, because the more eyes we get, the more likely it
I
is
told my
we get
mom and she didn't
more-
care.
I told my mother-in-law and she really liked it.
Aw.
But yeah, the more people we get to like it and see it and show their friends, the more likely it is we'll be able to make more cartoons. Don't let it end here.
I found a picture of Spike that I posted in our Discord chat.
No.
Why? Let's see. God, where is Discord? Oh, shut the fuck up, Kel. Ow. Shit.
Amanda, you should share that with the stream.
No, I'm okay.
Shut up, Kel. Oh my fucking god. myself. Fuck you.
I'm glad that I made you cackle with secret messages twice during this live stream.
Oh my god. Fuck off. Anyway, y'all do your outros.
Hi, I'm Kel. I make comics that you can read at kelmcdonald.com. My main one is The City Between, about gay werewolves in the future. I also make a comic called You're the Chosen One, about 23 kids that got the same prophecy dream. And that is readable on my Patreon at patreon.com/kelmcdonald. I am on all the social medias as Kel McDonald, except for Twitter, where I'm Kelhound, which is spelled like Hellhound but with a K, and on Instagram, where I'm Kel Draws Comics on Insta. And sign up for my newsletter. I have a Discord where we watch werewolf movies every full moon. Tonight's a full moon, so we just watched the original Wolfman. And that's it. That's everything.
I'm Amanda Lafrene, AMANDALAFRENAIS.com. That link is in the description. I actually, if the next week goes as planned, I may just have things to actually promote. So next time.
Nice.
But that's next time. Today, I'm tired. And I do draw comics.
Yes.
Good night. Go away.
Thank you, everyone.